Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you carved out time tonight because your 40s are genuinely your sweet spot. You're earning well, you've learned some hard lessons, likely, and you've still got enough runway to make smart moves that completely reshape your future. We're here to give you a clear eyed, practical approach to building wealth that works with your actual life, messy priorities. We're juggling a lot. We've got competing goals. So let's get started. In terms of what we'll cover tonight, I will talk at pace. We've got an amazing producer on the call, Amelia. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box. No question's a silly question, and we will collate them and answer them as part of our panel. And first off, I will go through some really critical principles that I'd like to convey to you that really apply, particularly in this really important decade of your 40s, and why it is super critical to be using this time really wisely to grow wealth, how to stay focused and financially intentional during a really hectic life age. Myself, I've got 3 kids, a dog, a husband. I work full time. My husband always jokes it's in that order. And it's a lot, and I understand that, but it is really important, again, that you do what needs to be done within this time frame. We've got some practical tips to maximize your financial potential. For the second half of the webinar tonight, I've got an amazing panel with me in the background. I'm joined by our expert convener, Carla, who'll keep us on track, and my amazing colleague, Melanie Cooper, who is a wealth expert. So before we dive into the meat of the webinar, I need to read out this disclaimer. This presentation is provided for informational purposes only. The content of this presentation is not intended as a substitute for regulated financial advice. Obviously, we'd love to know who you are, so we'd love to have the chance to give you that financial advice, but to do so, we need to know who you are, who you're not, and what your goals are. And we've got a wee offer following this presentation tonight, which we will go through at the end to help facilitate that and make that as easy as possible. So you might be thinking, who am I to tell you what to do in your 40s? So obviously I am in my 40s, just. I'm the head coach at Enable Me. I'm also a chartered accountant. I've got 20 plus years in accounting, investment banking, and consulting. I've built and sold my own successful business. I've worked along with in Europe, US, and NZ. I am a columnist and media commentator, and my day job as a coach is to optimize outcomes for my clients and help them reach their financial potential. Been here at Enable Me for the last decade, and I work with amazing people, amazing colleagues, and it is utter privilege to help people again achieve their potential. So here's your 40s. We should be in our peak earning years, maximum complexity, and honestly, the decade where wealth gets built or quietly slips away while you're just trying to keep all those plates spinning. You're making good money, but between the mortgage, the kids, maybe aging parents, and just the sheer cost of living a full life, your financial goals can so easily become the thing that you'll get to when you have time. But you and I both know that you never truly have time or space to think. And again, just to reiterate, this decade matters not because you need to be perfect, but because the decisions you make now, the systems you put in place, and the opportunities you actually execute on will determine whether your 60s feel like freedom or constraint. So let's make sure you're not just earning well, but building wealth that lasts. And I really love this picture, and it really does, I think, encapsulate this decade. Um, You'll have a partner, you might have kids, you might not have a partner. If you don't, you've got pets that generally cost my clients an arm and a leg. You've got maybe aging parents if you still have them. You've got your career. Health blips often show up with friends and family. And we're also trying to juggle that wealth building retirement. So it's a lot. We've got lots of different balls in the air. But again, you're finally making decent money. The mortgage is likely still large. Often we've got that lifestyle creep come in and it's sneaky and pervasive, and you're getting squeezed from both sides. Kids need everything. I've got a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 18-year-old, just can't believe it. And again, there's always something. It's a sports trip, or I need this and that. It's a lot. And parents that might need help. And I get that. I've got two parents in a rest home at the moment. Again, everyone is pulling at you in terms of needs and energy and financial progress. It's not going to happen by accident in this chaos. That's not how this works. So you need a plan intentional enough to build wealth while you're busy living it. That is the key. And 25 at the beginning of the decade, 25 years to retirement, it really does feel like ages still. At the end of the decade, 15 years, less so. And I think that is particularly exacerbated when you have health challenges. Please use this decade. Future's promised to no one. I get that. We still want you to live a good life, but you got to make progress alongside that. You really do. And for me and my clients, that is about having a really solid financial plan. That is your North Star. But how we craft that plan together is you got to understand your natural tendencies around money. In terms of success around finances, we know that 80% relies on your behavior, 20% around strategy. We need to understand who you are, what makes you tick, and really lean into what that means to you and how you operate, and how do we tweak things with your natural personality to make sure that you make better decisions into the future. You've got to have a really strong money mindset. And for my clients, that's about understanding those goals that are going to motivate you when things are hard, when you're distracted, but you want these things more than that distraction. And you've got to have good habits. You really do. And part of those good habits is having really good systems around you where the default position is success, not failure. Debt repayment is critical. It really is. We're going to get rid of short-term debt, lickety split. But again, as part of that wealth creation strategy, you've got to be dealing with that home mortgage optimally as well. Non-negotiable that you have a really good buffer. Again, this is the quarter when it hits the fan, likely. So again, you've got to have a buffer to be able to see yourself through that without having to lurch too much in terms of your hand being forced to make financial decisions that potentially are not going to serve you thereafter. And I think this is just so critical. And I was thinking before we commenced, I really wished I'd done a slide about this, but you got to have good insurance. You really do. I've lost close friends in this decade. Um, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Really important that you have good cover. Don't pay too much, but have good cover, because likely in terms of your financial plan, we're reliant on your income. And again, we have to ensure that if anything happens, we can still keep things going and your family are going to be okay. And please get a will. It's ridiculous. I think over 50% of New Zealanders don't have wills. Please just get a will. If not, you're exposing your partner, your kids, your family in terms of if you do pass. So really important. And please, that KiwiSaver piece, a really important component. It's not the be all and end all, certainly, but it is a big chunk of potential wealth when we talk about retirement. Make sure you're in the right fund and make sure that your provider is giving you the returns that you deserve. Really important. So all of this componentry works together within your plan to ensure in this decade you make the financial progress you deserve. And I'm going to touch on some of those behavioral elements quickly because again time is just evaporating. And again, when we talk about that 80% behavior, your money personality feeds into that. So I'm a little bit more of a shopper, so I derive emotional satisfaction from shopping. My husband is more of a saver. He derives emotional satisfaction from saving. Often lots of my clients come to me and they're plodding, so they're not neither here nor there with money, generally drifting along. And again, I work with lots and lots of single people, but generally there's some spice as two money personalities come together if you are in a relationship. And usually that has to be navigated within a plan as well to alleviate that tension. Because again, money worries is one of the leading causes of relationship breakdown. So again, having a good plan, understanding your tendencies and how to craft them together to your best outcome is really going to serve you thereafter. Everyone's in different cash positions and again could care less where you are right now. My job is to get you essentially to flying as fast as possible. So really quickly, sinking is when you don't have enough coming in to cover your outgoings. Floating is you're just drifting along, you're fine, but again, you're not making the progress you deserve. I want to get all of my clients to flying, and to me, that looks to saving at least 20% of your cash flow for debt repayment, investment, investing, etc. So that's where I want to get you to. Lots of people tell me that they're floating when they have credit card debt. I disagree. If you can't repay that credit card debt in full, I think you're sinking because you can't correct past overspending. Again, don't care where you're at. We just need to acknowledge where you are and move through strategies to ensure that we capture that cash flow more efficiently. And we've got lots of strategies to help you around that. And again, just reiterating that formula. Lots of people focus on strategy, but again, you've got to craft that behavior to ensure you have money left over to invest really wisely into the future. And I know more than anyone within this decade, it is just such a balance, isn't it? You know, when you see friends get sick suddenly or things happen, you lose parents, etc., you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to live for the now. But I think in my mind, the art of your 40s is learning to enjoy today without stealing from tomorrow. It's not about deprivation, it really isn't. It's about designing a plan that funds both. And what really helps with that when our energy, we've just got so many competing priorities around energy, is to automate everything you can. So you're not making the same financial decisions every week. Good systems mean you make really smart choices once, then get on with your life while your wealth builds in the background. And having a financial plan over this decade, I feel like I'm saying the same thing again and again. You will do better, but cash is the engine that drives your plan. You need a solid spending plan and cash flow tracking because when my time and energy is scattered across what feels like 1,000 demands, I know I feel like I'm being dramatic, but you know what I mean. Weeks blur into months and suddenly years have flown by. I mean, I cannot believe we're in November. I feel like I'm just getting used to writing 2025. You know time goes so fast, but please don't make them go by with nothing to show for it, without a clear why anchoring your decisions. Focus, it just evaporates. It just does. So I really encourage you to build a plan that aligns with your values, With your money, everyone's different. Make it automatic and let discipline do the heavy lifting while you just live your life. And at this point in time, lots of us are on the property ladder. Again, often that comes with really big mortgages, but now is when you can really make progress. But if you can get that property piece right, it's you have a headwind behind you. And I think COVID showed us that kind of over leveraging can have issues in terms of, when the market dips, etc. So again, ensuring you're prepared means that you don't get yourself tangled up or tied up for too many years, not having the ability to make progress. And I love this graph kind of showing those different kind of ages and stages in terms of where people are at. And I work with people, along that whole continuum. And I've anchored it to age within the slide, but I also know to be true that often that's not quite the case. You might have a financial track event like an illness, like a separation, and you're kind of way back at the beginning. You've got to get to where everyone else is, but you've kind of got half the time to do so. So, again, so critical. You have a plan, you're being super strategic, and again, really maximize the opportunities ahead of you. And I think what is unique within what we've seen for this decade, but other decades certainly, is that pervasive social media highlight reel of, quite frankly, fake Joneses spending money they don't have to impress likely people they don't like. Please don't let someone else's curated fantasy derail your actual plan. Focus on your own goals, your own values, and your own version of success, because honestly, comparison is the fastest way to build someone else's life instead of yours. I wanted to call that out because, again, I think that becomes part of the pressure that potentially people in their 40s, in previous generations, haven't had to deal with because they're more comparing themselves potentially to the person next door, not some, again, illusion of wealth and what everyone else is doing. And again, I've alluded to this already, but if you are in a relationship, this decade demands that you're genuinely aligned with your partner. Don't just assume you want the same things, because unstated expectations are where financial plans go to die. Different financial personalities, they're not a problem. One of you might be a spender, one of you might be a saver like my husband, but ignoring those differences or avoiding the conversation absolutely is really destructive. And sometimes that third party perspective helps you navigate it constructively. So you're building together instead of pulling in opposite directions. Again, this is the decade where you really maximize those opportunities. And again, if money is the niggle in your relationship, we can help you with that. We can solve it. But again, you need to address it. And no one, I tell you, no one wants to be accountable to their partner around money. And the cost of not addressing it and that relationship breaking down is exponential in terms of having that wealth position. And I think it's part of the having really important money conversations. I really encourage you to start talking about money as early as possible. They say when your kid is 3, you should start having money conversations, which feels super early to me. But again, part of this is role modeling to them what they should be doing into the future. And that's really important in terms of, let's make sure our kids are empowered so they know what to do thereafter. And again, you knowing what to do, having a plan is super important as part of empowering them to be better going forward. And I think also on the flip side, if you're lucky enough to still have your parents, really having open conversations and understanding their financial situation. Are they secure? Will you need to help? Really important. And you do it before there's a crisis. And your financial plan, like lots of my clients, may need to factor in their needs or future support. And burying your head in the sand shouldn't be an option. It really shouldn't. And again, this is the decade. And if you're not single, you will have friends that are single, I am sure. And navigating finances alone is hard, but again, really important to put in place systems and support. Just critical. No one's ever alone, and I think that's becomes even more important to have that clear, independent plan. But reach out, have somebody else in your corner. You're not alone, and often that financial sounding board helps you to be brave to make those decisions that are going to be in your best interest going forward. So here's the truth. The best plan for you depends on your specific time frame, goals, risk appetite, cash flow, and capacity to borrow, while banks will still lend to us. Your 40s are your sweet spot. Peak earnings, real leverage opportunities, and just enough runway to build serious wealth across debt repayment, property, equities investments, but only if you're intentional, automated, and aligned with your partner if you have one. I think working with a qualified advisor when you need one, super critical, and building your own version of success instead of chasing someone else's, super important. So now let's dive into your questions. I'm joined by Melanie Cooper, a senior wealth management expert at AdviceFirst with over 20 years in banking and financial services. And we're expertly moderated by Burns. So let's get practical and tackle what's actually on your mind.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight. And it feels like all the 40s ladies have entered the room. So yeah, I'm
We're entering
excited
the
to catch
chat.
up. I know we're entering the chat, and what a great chat to have tonight. Katie, I was sitting here and I was loving that content, and maybe there's nothing quite like being in a room where you're right in that decade and right in the heart of what we're talking about. So I think, look, you talked a lot to kick us off around a lot of those pieces around planning and that mindset piece. And we've had some great questions come through. And I guess one of the ones that I thought was really key is how do you kind of go about balancing in your 40s that piece where you are wanting to stay on track for the future because you're kind of in that midway point. Like it kind of feels midway in your working career. As you said, it's the best kind of peak opportunity point. But how do you stay on track when you're sort of planning for that future, but you also want to live in the here and now because it's also the time where you're thinking about family holidays, all of those sorts of things. Like how do you balance those two things from a mindset point of view?
Yeah, I've really actually been thinking about this. My daughter is in year 13, so she's just sitting her final exams now.
All
As
of
you
us
know,
are in that position,
Carla.
all exams. Yep, yep.
And you know how when you think time is infinite and you're going to be in a stage forever, but I've really
Yeah,
realized that is not the case.
yeah,
And time is super, super precious. And to me, the key is identifying your true non-negotiables, the things that you spend money on that make you feel happy,
yeah,
and build them into your plan first. So spending on what matters now, for me, that's kind of my kids' education, travel, it just becomes part of the wealth building strategy. It's not a threat to it, and that you can sustain the plan thereafter, because that sustaining of the plan is really important. It's not a flash in the pan, you look at this once and you're done. It has to be incremental and sustainable to really maximize over that decade. And I always say to my clients, I am here for you to live your best life now and into the future. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does. So it's
Mm,
like it's completely okay to have short-term goals that you want to enjoy, like those family holidays and those long-term goals.
Mhm.
But I think, I guess that's the advantages sometimes with a coach, because you can sit there and sometimes some of those decisions are emotionally led, but sometimes it's really good to like have that conversation around like, hey, is it worth like investing in upgrading a house, or like sometimes there's numbers behind some of those decisions as well. And yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And, I can think of a client that I saw just recently who was wanting to upgrade their home. They also wanted to start a business and they also
Buy
wanted
a
to go on
pool.
holiday.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
like,
yeah, yeah,
that feels like a lot.
yeah,
Again, there's never any judgment, but I think what is super important is understanding the consequences of decisions. You
yeah,
always steer the ship. It's your life. No one's going to care more about it than you. But going into these decisions with eyes wide open. If I did this, this is what happens if I did this. And then we optimize whatever outcome speaks to you, but you understand the consequences and you do what needs to be done prior to that. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
yeah.
And so you've kind of got into your 30s, and what we recognize now is that a lot of people are kind of getting into first home ownership later. So average
Mm,
age is around about 36. And for some people, home ownership is not the biggest thing on their agenda. But
mm.
let's just assume that you have decided to buy a home, because Kiwis are still really entrenched to it. When do you make the decision? Like, is it about paying off the mortgage versus investing? Like, we'll come to like what type of investing, but how do you decide? Is it about just getting that mortgage down completely, or in this area, like, you know, can you do both during this period of time?
In my mind, any good financial plan includes a strategy to pay off your mortgage,
Yeah,
but you do it concurrently. So whilst you're chipping away at debt, you're also building investments that might be across property, funds, etc., to diversify and maximize. So again, in my mind, it's not one or the other, it's you do both essentially to
yeah,
ensure that you maximize. And I think it's really important to clock because I see lots of people who come to see me initially and they're like, we just want to pay off our mortgage. We want to get mortgage free as fast as possible, which again, music to my ears. I love them
yeah,
already. But they're like, I'll do that first, and then I'm going to think about these other things like investing in funds or buying a property. In my mind, there's actually quite a cost to doing that. It's great to want to be mortgage free, and again, as part of your plan, we'll get you mortgage free as fast as possible. But you think, well, if you keep doing that over a decade, you're creating lots of equity that's potentially just sitting there doing nothing. So again, there is a cost to just doing one thing. Likely, you need to be doing lots of different things, but it's the ordering around that and where do you lean in terms of
yeah.
age and stage.
And so that's a great question, which is how how do you how do you decide like what type of investing you should be doing? So we've obviously got KiwiSaver, we've got managed funds, we've got property, and that you've said there's loads of different things you can be investing in. So Mel, let's start with like KiwiSaver. And obviously that's becoming the basis now for a lot of people's investing. So, like what should you be doing with your KiwiSaver during this period of time?
So I'll sort of jump into the chat. With so with
Sorry, let you
KiwiSaver,
get a word in edgewise. I'm so
Yeah, it's your
sorry.
turn.
Sorry.
so with KiwiSaver, it is important to check on the strategy that you're investing in, the strategy that you're in, whether it be the risk level that you're taking with the investment. The key thing is making sure that you're in the right one for you. Can be generally as people have got longer until retirement, they can take the ups and downs. You can't access it till you're 65. So if you're getting near to 50, then you've still got 15 years before you can access it. So it's really key to check on the strategy. The strategy can really drive the growth in it and you can't access it. So it's really important to check that with your either KiwiSaver provider, talk to a financial advisor, but that's really key is to be in the right strategy and don't just
set and
jump into it and
forget.
leave it. Yeah, don't just set
Yeah.
and forget.
And we see a lot of people that basically, I mean, how old's the fund now? Is it like 20 years old?
18.
18. Yeah.
Turned
So
18.
that's right. It started when our children were born. And so there's a lot of people who sort of like set up funds with default providers and just set and forget. And as your life kind of evolves and that runway to retirement kind of changes, you want to be thinking about how that performs. So you should be kind of looking at that periodically and thinking, is it doing what it needs to do for you? And I think the other thing that's really key as well is that obviously there's lots of conversations and there's lots of activity in the KiwiSaver market because there's, I think, like 28 providers. And so it's really easy to just talk about KiwiSaver on its own. So you
Yeah.
can talk to someone who just does KiwiSaver, but KiwiSaver is only like one portion of your retirement and only one portion of like, or sorry, one type of investing. So there's obviously lots of opportunities to invest. And so one of the things I kind of want to talk to you both about is, you know, we always kind of have a bit of a laugh here with Enable Me and between us all because we've got a lot of clients who choose to do property investing. We've got a lot of clients that do managed funds investing. And Katie and Mel, I know you guys work obviously in those two different areas. And then you work with lots of clients who do a bit of both. So can we just have a bit of a chat about the benefits and kind of the opportunities and the risks and stuff like that about property versus managed funds? So Katie, team property girl, like, where does property work for somebody particularly well?
Yeah. And I think eventually most wealth builders need both. So
Yeah.
you say I'm a property gal, but I'm actually, let's invest in what's right for you. And I work really closely with Mel, with lots of my clients. I trust her explicitly in that managed fund space. But for lots of my clients, property offers stability and the ability to leverage. And often it's that leverage piece that amplifies returns into the future. And I think, particularly in this decade, often with clients who have mortgages, they don't necessarily have copious amounts of cash to invest, but they have equity in their home that we could potentially tap into to buy another property really strategically to grow wealth thereafter. So again, I think that's where property really comes into its own. And again, I'm actually not pro property. I am what is the right thing for you. And again, I think eventually you need both in essence.
Perfect. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I think, Mel, if we kind of go to managed funds, I think our views of managed funds are really starting to change because
mm,
obviously 18 years ago,
Yeah,
KiwiSaver came into
absolutely.
play. And I think it's taken quite a few of us a while to realize that KiwiSaver was in fact a managed fund, because managed funds felt like something that like rich people did, and that you had to have a lot of money to start investing in managed funds. But do you want to talk a little bit about how there are actually opportunities, if that's the right kind of growth strategy for you, because property is not for everyone. And so, what are some of the advantages that you have in using managed funds as a way to kind of grow your wealth base?
So managed funds really come into their own in regards to being able to diversify. You
mm.
can spread your risk, and sometimes people are quite exposed to New Zealand economy, to property markets themselves. So it can help to diversify and look at investments that are sort of outside of that. So it helps to spread risk by looking at different sort of options out there. It's also very liquid. So the
Mm.
ability to
Yeah.
access your money is really, and that's really important for a lot of people, as they get
Can't
into
sell half a
retirement.
house.
Can't sell a bedroom to go on a
Sadly.
holiday.
Yes.
So So it's, and I do agree with Katie. I think that everything within an overall asset base or an overall portfolio, it can be a combination of many different things.
Yeah.
But, managed fund does give you that liquidity. It gives you that ability to, take from it what you need, and the rest keeps working hard for you. It's also quite hands off in that you're not dealing with all the things that can go into property ownership when it comes to maintenance and dealing with tenants. It is a more hands off type approach potentially, and some people like that, and it just gives you that. That extra sort of way of diversifying risk, and also that liquidity is quite important. And also, I agree that really what you need to do is look and see what are your goals, where do you want to be in retirement, what
Yeah,
does your retirement
absolutely.
look like for you, and then find the solution or solutions that will get you there.
Yeah,
And
you're dead
that's what
right.
you
I
do.
agree. Yeah, I
And
did. Yeah, I totally agree. It's your financial plan that determines where you lean based on goals and capacity.
yeah,
It's just so critical. And I think that again, having that holistic approach
Mm,
around that entire position means that you really don't have your eggs in one basket, which I know
yeah,
that we both really advocate for in terms of that
absolutely.
diversified approach. I can give you an example. I've just recently seen a
Mm,
client this week who had a mortgage-free home. I know I'm in a 40s presentation, but they were just in their 50s, and they are mega savers, and they had 600K in a term deposit. And for them, when we were looked at their retirement number, etc., we've crafted a plan whereby they are buying an investment property, they're tipping in enough cash to get it cash flow neutral, and the rest they're investing in funds because they really do want choice around an early retirement, etc.
mm,
And that's going to help with that liquidity piece. And then they've got KiwiSaver bubbling away in the background, and that's actually an aggressive fund because again, I think lots of people incorrectly anchor themselves to that 65 piece, and for them, they have no plan to access that portion of their wealth at 65. So that's ramped up to high growth in this particular circumstance,
yeah.
not specified financial advice. So again, I think that beautifully illustrates that, again, it's what is right for you, your goals, and then we again be really optimal around the execution of piece around this. And that's why I love what Mel does with our clients, is that she really tailors that advice across all different fund providers that she has vetted very closely
Yeah.
in terms of what is right for them. I love that.
And
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think, the exciting thing out of that conversation for anyone that's listening is that really a plan will always be tailored towards what works for you and what you want to achieve. And so the best kind of mix of, how we do that really depends on what you're comfortable with and what you need those assets to do for you and how quickly you need to be able to access them. And yeah, I'm going to answer this question now because I saw it sort of pop up in the chat, and maybe we're all a little biased because I know what my answer is going to be. But someone said, I'm 49 years old. Is it too late?" We're all
Never too
49.
late.
We're all
Never
49
too
on
late.
this call, just about. And so we would all say definitely not too late
It's
to
never
Emma
too
who
late.
asked. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
my youngest client is 24, my oldest client is 84, and it's never too late. But the earlier you start, the easier it is. And
yeah,
again, there's no better time than to start now, because if you do it this time next year, you would have wished you did it today. So
yeah,
again, never too late, but be clever.
yeah,
Be
yeah.
clever. Don't leave this by chance. Get good advice, execute on a plan, and do what needs to be done, and your trajectory financially will exponentially shift in your favor. I know it will.
And so I think that that is a really good question to kind of ask, which is that we've kind of talked about all these strategies and, like we're obviously very focused here around those opportunities for growing wealth. And those opportunities for growing wealth can pay dividends for now to kind of unlock those opportunities for your family and the things you want to do for now. But when both of you are planning, um, like how are you getting that balance between anchoring in the goals that we're trying to achieve now and actually planning for that retirement? Like is now too late to start for retirement? Is now too early to start for retirement? Like,
Hell
yeah,
no.
yeah,
No, yeah, the earlier you start, the more time you've got,
Yeah.
and the more you get the benefits of the time value of money. It's working for you over a longer period of time, and so you're getting more of that gain on it. So I think that it's important to do it as soon as you can, and to be sort of looking at where you want to be and what you want to do, and realizing that retirement for a lot of people can be a really long time. The life expectancy, if
So
you
true.
if you get to the end, you could be in retirement for a very long
20,
time.
25 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 30, and so the sooner that you start putting something in place, the benefits you are going to get to when you do get to that. You get options and choices then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that being intentional and uh, again, I know I'm biased because I'm a financial advisor, but get good advice. And I think that's actually a challenge that we missed out on addressing previously, actually, in terms of slides, is I actually think this is a challenge not only for this decade, but there is a lot of information out there in
Yeah.
terms of what to do with your money, more so than we ever had. But I do challenge the hygiene around that information, and often people are making decisions, like really big decisions, based on unqualified social media hacks that are not necessarily applicable to them. And that is, it can be really devastating. And on the flip side of having so much information, chat GPT, etc., it's almost like you're drinking from a fire hydrant. So it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's one person will say invest in property, another person's going absolutely not, invest in funds, another person is saying invest in Bitcoin. And so you get so confused and so overwhelmed that you actually end up doing nothing. And again, there is a cost to that as well. So please seek advice. This isn't a taboo subject, it's really not. And there are experts who have been doing this for a very long time now. Lean into that and do what is right for you and your family in accordance to your goals.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because as you were kind of making that um, commentary, Katie, I was thinking about how 5 years ago we would sit and kind of be like, would you take advice from somebody at a bar, like stood around a barbecue? But in essence, some of the kind of AI stuff has become the equivalent, and the social media stuff has become the equivalent of taking advice around a barbecue. And it's even worse because it's actually not people that you know face to face. So I completely agree that our access to information has become wider, but the actual credibility of those sources is becoming a little bit more difficult to judge.
Just
Now,
worries us. Yeah.
yeah, I'm conscious of time, but I do want to squeeze in just one or two more very quick questions, which is, Katie, I think what you touched on, and it's so funny because you brought it up and I thought about it too, which is um, someone horrified me about a month or two ago, and I horrified the team when I said, in your 40s, you're starting to enter sniper alley. And I was like, I'd never heard of the term. And I was like, that is a thing, but I didn't realize the risk to us from a health point of view as we
Mm.
enter that 40s decade. And the chances are we actually, some of us won't make it out the other side of that 40s decade. And we're still raising children and paying off mortgages. And so to that point, how important is it, and how much do you encourage clients to just go and readdress those insurance needs? And
Oh, it's
yeah,
just critical. It's
yeah,
non-negotiable for any of my clients who I work with. Part of my job is to have a longer line of sight than my clients, and Mel and I have a super high duty of care to protect our clients in terms of what we do, being qualified advisors, having good insurance, making sure that you have cover. Again, time and time again with my friends, with the clients we work with, it is the difference between you being able to pay for the treatment that you need
yeah,
for your family get to be okay. And I think also really along with that wills piece and that fear around health, just do what needs to be done now. Honestly, that question around I'm 49, is it too late? Well, it's never too late, but take action today. Like, this is great that you've come along here, but you knowing all of this stuff, it's kind of meaningless in a way. You've got to take really good action. It's the action piece that gets you ahead. So, as part of that risk mitigation, have good insurances, have a will, but do what needs to be done. And I think that fear piece that you allude to around seeing your, well, what if I can't buy a property because what if I get sick or I might lose my job, etc.
Correct.
But
Correct.
what if you don't? And I've had lovely clients, and she got diagnosed with breast cancer. They'd bought an investment property 12 months prior. They had all their insurances, great, up-to-date wills, but they were so thankful that they had
Yeah,
acted when they
totally.
would, because that ability to buy that was taken away from them. So again, execute when you can, make sure you have buffers. We're here to help risk mitigate for you, but it's anchored to action. Yes, it's the juggle, but it's the doing decade. So
Yeah,
make sure you're
agreed.
doing.
Agree. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna
and I
s oh, sorry, Mel, you were gonna say
I
one
was just
thing?
going to say, and I think Katie brought up a good point in regards to asking for help. There are
Mm,
people out there that can help you and give you
yep,
the information, and it's not, and it will demystify and make it less scary because there's a wealth of information.
Yeah,
There are lots of
absolutely.
people that can help, and if you reach out and ask those questions, there'll be
yeah,
people to help
Absolutely.
and
you.
yeah, I think it's that, again, speaking to people who are qualified. Mel and I work shoulder to shoulder in the Takapuna office, and I explicitly trust her. And I think that's really important to have that expert eye, that
Yeah.
you know that we all have your back, and we're going to ensure that we're going to do our darndest for you
Yeah,
to be okay
absolutely.
into the future.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
important.
And I'm gonna be sneaky and ask one last question because I think you kind of touched on it, and probably it's a question close to my heart. Is that the 40s is like a season for change. And if it's not health, one of the other major changes that happens to a lot of us is life's going in one direction and then all of a sudden it is not. And so we often build lives and then in our 40s find ourselves in a situation where a 25-year relationship comes to an end. And so, Mel and Katie, I think you've both seen that sometimes we think we're entering our 40s to build for the next phase, but it's really not uncommon for us to be working with clients who are starting again
Mm,
in this decade. And I guess I would like to kind of round out and just kind of say, like, there's still time, isn't there? And maybe you guys can talk to like the options that are still available because I think we encounter a lot of people who are like, where to from here? And I personally can say, with the right advice, just amazing opportunities. Yeah. And courage. Like I guess I'm going to jump in saying like that is one of the things that makes a huge difference is having that person to kind of give you that
nudge.
support and nudge is really, really key when you're having to make that as a sole person and a decision maker. So, Katie, just over to you quickly.
Yeah, I think having really good visibility around your numbers, like cash in, cash out, what's left over, what does your position look like in terms of asset liabilities, making sure that everything's structured really well. Likely you'll still have a mortgage. Please don't pay any more interest than you need to back to the bank, and get excited about what comes next, because I actually think one of the most exciting things for the clients that I work for, also scary, but we lean into exciting at Enable Me, is that you steer the ship, and there's that amazing sense of accomplishment. And I've seen this
Yeah,
with you, Carla, when you do things that don't you never thought that you could do, but you're doing it. And you're showing everyone, showing them, you're showing the world, and
absolutely.
you're role modeling for your kids that you've got this. You're a clever
Yeah,
person who is doing what needs to be done, and you're going to have more choice into the future.
yeah, absolutely. Mel, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it's also exactly understanding where you're at, understanding where you want
Mm,
to be, and also don't be too overwhelmed thinking that I need to be, like you say, keeping up with the joke, that I need to be in this position or life has changed, but it hasn't. It's just, you just got to deviate. It's not that it's over. It's not that you're not going to. So it's not being so overwhelmed by, I feel like I should have been in this place or this is where I need to be, because you can still get there. It's just changing the pathway, building a different strategy,
Correct.
and understanding where you're starting from.
It's
and
creating
yeah.
new dreams and different
Yeah.
dreams. And
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, we're never. I think that's the glorious thing about this decade, is when no one's aiming for perfect. We're just saying, well, how do we do our best? How do we live the best version of our life? And I think be in control of your finances, having a plan, investing productively is part of that well-being. Like, we're going to look after ourselves in this decade as well. Like, everyone's pushing us in lots of different directions, but we're going to own this space
Yeah.
because we're important and we want to have choice into the future.
Excellent. Well, I think that's with our sisterhood kind of wrapping up. That's a nice way to kind of wrap us up. But I think we've covered some great ground today. There is like a million things that we could cover. There's been some questions about, relocating and what do I do if I want to do that. Those can be really complex conversation points to kind of cover in a panel. And so we would really encourage you to kind of have those conversations because, yes, it can get really complex if we're trying to move funds overseas, etc. And I'm going to let you kind of wrap us out, Katie, but that's that one piece around like this advice that we're giving today is really general, and hence why if you want to work out what to do, it's a really great idea to actually talk one-on-one as opposed to just talking in this generalized forum. So over to
Yeah,
you, Katie, to wrap us
yeah.
out.
I love working with these ladies, by the way. I hope that has shone through in this panel, and my lovely colleague Amelia, who is in the background. And please be reassured, we work with lots of men. We've got lots of men coaches, etc. This is an all-female panel, but men are important to us as well. I've got a gorgeous son, husband, etc. But to round out tonight, I know we're talking about the 40s and we're talking about time. It is never too late, but remembering we're anchoring ourselves going forward to action, because that's the differentiator, the execution of the investment piece or the paying off the debt, having a plan. And I'd really encourage you to get some qualified expert advice. If it's not us, go to another qualified financial advisor. But if you are interested to jump on the financial scales, understand where you're at now, where do you want to be, whether you're on track, could you do better, what investment options are right for you, I really would encourage you to reach out, to have a conversation with a coach like myself. We're up and down the country. It's a 60 to 90-minute session. You give us a little bit of info, and again, we talk about, well, what are the opportunities you should be leaning into? So we've got an awesome offer tonight. If you book tonight, oh, it's the 12th of November. I thought it was the 11th. 12th, see, time flies. 12th of November, you'll get your initial 90-minute consultation for just $100, usually $400. If you book after tonight, then you will secure the consultation for $149. And we really encourage you to act now. Just scan that QR code. Hope you really enjoyed tonight. We loved being with you, and we hopefully will see you in the future. Take care.